And now I'm wondering what Zeri's going to be paired with, because we've seen it a lot with Yuumi. I personally kind of like to see it more with things that can go aggressive and play this more lane bully style, like the Leona in that bot lane, especially if you're going to get like Nautilus, probably a Felios or something on the other side. I think or even the Jinx on the other side, I think having something that can play aggressive in this lane works out really well. The Ryze, though, picked up for Cryin. We said this guy likes to roam. Now I would love to see Gori go towards something like the Orianna. Maybe they even swap it up here, right? You go for Ori and you get your Leona here for FPX, and then you can always look later for a counter pick for Clid.
Yeah, you can look for it. The Galio does similar things. You're still going in, but you are all inning on a team fight right now. The short range burst, and obviously, you know, Zeri wants to be on top of your faces. Galio can help with that big engage if they decide to go with something like that, but they're actually going to go with maybe a tried and tested combination. The Galio Camille combination could be locked in here just to single out someone and take them out.
Yeah, but Renekton is still open, so for ZS, honestly, I think you take Renekton here. You can have a decent frontline, especially with the way FPX want to try and play forward. You get great lane stats, but they're actually just going to take the Jinx here, so it means that you can... It was kind of a call out from FPX, right? Like, you either get your AD carry here in the Jinx, or we get to ban away the Renekton. We get to ban away things that this Camille can struggle against and make sure that we're in a really good spot. So now Ultra Prime, I think you ban away junglers. Actually, yeah, ban away junglers, you get first rotation on your jungle, so setting yourself up there, but it's actually going to be the supports that they're looking towards.
Yeah, you mentioned as well the Yuumi, and I don't mind the Yuumi as such, but I do think that if you're looking at the composition of FPX, they're looking to dive. They're looking to jump straight onto your face. So things like the Leona, those are big picks that I think will be coming in here. But now FPX, they're going to start banning away things that can do well into the Camille. I would not be surprised to see their last ban be that Renekton that you mentioned. Did have some change, or you know, not as high priority come into 12.2 just because of the Sterex changes. So we'll see how this last few bans come out here and what these teams think are important bans.
Yeah, I still think Leona is the best bet here. We'll have to see exactly what the plan is going to be. Am I crazy, or is patch 12.3 the stage?
Possibly. You might actually be 100% correct on that. So
yeah,
maybe the players are confused as well. That's why we haven't seen a priority.
Yeah, we're still seeing like a huge amount of priority on Renekton on this patch just because he is insanely strong. But that's the Leona taking off the board. I still think Renekton will be banned away here. It's super strong against the Camille early and gives you such a strong lane. ZS as well kind of prefers these bruisers. Like when you look at what he's played, like Gragas, Renekton, like these are the two top picks on him. But it's actually the Akali. Okay, so. I mean, I've seen the Akali into the Camille. I haven't been the biggest fan of it, to be perfectly honest. Camille kind of just slaps her about for a good portion of the lane phase. But Hacker will get his hands on the Xiao. There hasn't been any sort of like jungle bans here, so you still got your pick of the litter. And I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, to see Clid go back towards something like the Jarvan, right? Like, ton of lockup, especially when you look towards the Ryze and the Jinx. Plus, you've also got the opportunity here where you can add another kind of wombo combo pot for yourself, where Camille can go in with the Galio ult. You now got the Jarvan who can go in with the Galio ult, and just following up on all this dive that FPX have. Viego can kind of fit that same vein, but more of like a, hey, I can be that follow-up damage rather than that big engage tool.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. The Star Exchange is on 12.3. I do apologize. I'm getting... This is why you don't look at patch changes until it hits your region. This is why you never look at the patches until it happens. But again, FPX, they are very heavily indexing into this. We want to fight. We want to 5v5, jump on your face. The set of the Alistar would fit perfectly into what they have just concocted for themselves. A just big, beefy frontline that just jumps in, gets on top of you, and kills you before you can get away.
Yeah, and especially like with the Leona ban, the Alistar kind of fits into that, right? Like super, super strong, especially if you want to start looking for dives in the bot lane. And when you got Gori on this Galio, plus you've got Clid who can try and play down there, it still feels very heavily indexing into the we want to play around bot lane style that we've seen from FPX. Ultra Prime on the right hand side though, actually going to go with the Jax. So I was expecting that they might go with Renekton just to kind of provide this nice front to back style, but ZS wants to try and take it against xiaolaohu, and suddenly now it feels like Ultra Prime are going, right, well, if you want to play around bot side, we might just try and play around this top side, get ZS into a position where he can take over on those side lanes, but it's going to leave Elk and xiaoC as sitting ducks.
That's the big thing. I think Ultra Prime have indexed it into a little bit more of a split push setup and saying, look, if the Jax, if the Ryze can get themselves out into side lanes, if we can keep FPX separated away from their 5-man death ball, they maybe find some opportunities against them. Whereas, as we mentioned, FPX, they want to try and be a 5-man squad. They want to be just a doom ball running at your face, constantly trying to find out opportunities. And like you said, if Elk gets caught out in xiaolaohu, there's not really many places for them to go. Curious to see how the execution of this draft will work for the side of Ultra Prime, because in terms of ease of execution, FPX, in my opinion, kind of feel like they have an easier time of making their comp work for them.
I mean, they're very similar, right? Like, you've got a side lane for both Camille, Jax, Galio, Ryze. You've got the opportunity to come in group if you want to, and you've also got reasonable team fighting AD carries on both sides, engage supports, skirmish oriented junglers. Like, these are very, very similar compositions. And I think the big thing when I look at this is, like, depending on how the early game goes, this is going to dictate the game. Because if you start getting towers down on FPX's side or Ultra Prime's side, it becomes very easy for you to get vision control, and then like start dipping into fog of war, looking for plays on the mid lane or elsewhere in the map, and just consistently finding these picks against the opposition. And if you're on the back foot, it becomes really hard for you to try and maintain that, because they're just able to, your opposition's just able to outmaneuver you with how much more space they have on them.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Both these teams very close in the standings. 3-3 for FPX, 2-4 for Ultra Prime. It is still best of 3, so this will only put you 1 foot in the door. But both these sides have shown promise with what they've shown so far this season. They need to start solidifying it because they are running out of games. We are jumping onto the rift for game 1, and we're going to see exactly how this all pans out.
Yeah, we're going to spot it on Lwx and bot side, but they're just going to easily clear that one out. And then
全军出击！
Onto the... Excuse me, I just got my director in my ear telling me about that, so excuse me, I just trying to figure out what he was saying there. But onto the Raptors, excuse me, could not think of the word of there. So they will be able to spot out Viego on his path up towards that top side.
And look, I think a lot of this early game is going to come down towards the moves from Cryin in this from this mid lane. Hacker in the spot side is a nice trade, come through in the bottom lane. Cryin should have full push against Gori in the lane. You can even see Gori actually opting in for the aftershock. So kind of realizing, hey, look, like, I'm going to be the one following through, so having that extra resistance is going to work out reasonably well for me. So Cryin is going to be kind of the one that we're looking at to see, can he get down to this bot side to influence it, or rotate up towards this top side to ZS to kind of solidify this lane advantage for the Jax. Whereas when you look across at FPX, I feel like the best plan here for Clid is to actually try and like play through Gori in the mid. See if he can burn a flash early on Cryin, force him back, buy some space for Gori, and that way then maybe you can try and have influence on the map before Cryine's really able to get control.
And I've been told we did DC a little bit there, so do apologize for the disruption. Of course, you know, no one wants to see the game. Everyone just wants to hear the casters. Everyone knows that. So we'll see now exactly where they're able to move this one around. Clay's got to be, as we mentioned, passing it towards that top side. And I want to see what ZS can do on this Jax. So we mentioned he had last pick. He was given this matchup, you know, basically whatever way he wanted it. So he chose into this. And right now it is going to be a little bit of a push, but it does become a bit of a skill matchup the later the game goes on, because it's all about that counter-strike. It's all about being able to just, you know, mitigate a lot of that upfront damage that Camille can do.
Yeah, try and deny the Q from the Camille is the big one. And I think that's why, like, I want to see Ultra Prime try to play up towards this top side to get the definitive advantage up there. Hacker will be spotted moving up towards his top side scuttle though, so maybe we get some sort of reaction from Gori, but he's already at half health, and I don't really think he can try and come in. Again, like, Gori's not having the best of laning phases, and this is not the best of matchups for him.
I'm always curious about that kind of stuff as well. It's like, you know, two people who aren't amazing at laning phase. Who wins the laning phase then? But it looks like right now it is just both mid laners basically just going through their pots, pushing up the wave, not really too concerned about where they're going to be doing so far. We do see Hung posturing aggressively down in this bot side. And Alistar has become a pick that is a bit more fringe, I think is a fair way to put it. It is still very, very powerful as we come into later stages, but with the Glacial Augment, especially in those early levels before he hits level 6, very squishy. He needs to be very, very careful with what engages he decides to go for.
Yeah, I think he works quite well into some of the meta picks that we're seeing at the moment, right? Like, when you look towards Nautilus, he tries to go for the hook. It's very easy for Hong to go and engage.
Yeah, we're gonna go see if they're gonna make something work. Clit is there. Elk is just trying to kite this one out. You can see the damage coming out from Lwx in front of the minions. Not the greatest in the world. Elk is just trying to make this one work. But Gori, he's already roamed out. He's already got himself into this bot side. This could be terrible for Ultra Prime. They flash away with a taunt. 2-man underneath the tower. Gori is rewarded with 2 kills for his proactive play.
And this was just really nice from FPX. Gori managing the wave better in that mid lane. And then he got the push. Cryin did have the TP, but TP'd back to the mid lane. So he wasn't able to actually get in towards this bottom side as that play happened. And now Gori, he'll reset himself in towards the mid lane. Not even lose out on that much when it comes towards the CS department.
Huge win there for Gori, and again, we mentioned it in the pregame. These are two mid laners that love to leave the lane. They don't want to be there going toe for toe, tat for tat. They want to be getting themselves out and about, making sure they're making impact plays just like this.
Yeah, and you can see here, Gori actually cancelled his reset to start moving down towards the bot side. So this was a definitive call from FPX going, hang on, we can make this happen. And I think that's why maybe Gori was Cryin was underprepared, because he thought, oh, Gori's in here, but you see Ryze still in that mid lane. He's only just TP'd back, and it's too little too late then at that stage, because FPX have already got in towards your bot lane and you've got no way to follow.
They got great juggling of the aggro as well. They were able to get Hung underneath the tower, get him out, didn't even have to use his flash, and already FPX starting to put their front foot forward, already about 1,300 gold ahead at 5.5 minutes, or sorry, 6 minutes, excuse me, as we come, closer and closer to those mid-game skirmishes. It's only going to get a little bit harder, in my opinion, for Ultra Prime, because it's exactly what you mentioned, is that with Elk and xiaoC, if they're just getting jumped on, they don't have a hope or a prayer to leave. They can't do anything about it, so it's going to be an Ultra Prime to find avenues back in that they can support their bot sword, or at least trade somewhere else on the map.
And this is pre-level 6 as well. Like, Gori's only just hit his ultimate in the mid lane. Hung still hasn't got his Unbreakable will available, so when that is available, it becomes even easier to go for these plays, because Hung can just tank up that turret for days and as well provide that entrance tool for Gori. So Ultra Prime really need to keep themselves safe, and right now, like, I just thought we'd see Cryin basically, like, burning a bunch of pots, pushing in this wave and looking to link up a hacker, but we haven't actually seen Ultra Prime try and move pretty much at all thus far, despite the fact that that Cryin had that push in mid lane after Gori made that play bot.
You see the triple sheen here for FPX on xiaolaohu and Clid, and of course Lwx respectfully. Now we wait to see what the next big play is. Minute till the Rift Herald spawns. They got Dragon on the board as well. There's going to be a first Dragon Ocean. But I imagine FPX will want to go for that Rift Herald, because like you mentioned, they are going to be the ones wanting to try and push this issue, force the side of Ultra Prime to make a call where they have to 5v5. And like you mentioned there, level 6 is now for the top side of that map for FPX. It's going to be so much harder for Ultra Prime to find that opportunity.
And as well, just with the composition that they have, right? Like, Lwx is going to do so much more damage than Elk in a team fight right now, because the Zeri with Sheen picked up as well. Like, they're going to be so strong. Hung already considering moving, but maybe they're just going to stick around and keep pushing in on this bot side. xiaolaohu has been doing a wonderful job in the top lane. He's actually been able to amass a little bit of a CS lead for himself. I know it doesn't look like it at the moment, but look at the size difference in the wave there, right? Like, xiaolaohu, despite the way the match has gone, is actually playing this really well.
Yeah, really keeping himself safe. As you can see now, Elk getting jumped on, does not have flash, and has nowhere to go. Lwx will take that one. Hung as well, just keeping himself safe. Didn't even use his ultimate. He was so confident how much he could tank up, and it's just going to get worse, Dagda.
Yeah, and I mean, that was just a nice opportune moment for FPX, right? Like, xiaoC had moved over to see if he could get some vision control, and suddenly Elk is gone. So now you've got the reset coming through for Hung. He's made his way up towards his top side. Elk and xiaoC are only just managing to move back down to the bot lane. So for Ultra Prime, they've got to give up this Rift Herald as well, because FPX have numbers advantage. I mean, you got to do something here, Ultra Prime. This game's running away from you.
It's running away, and we're not even 10 minutes into the game right now. If FPX, we said we wanted to see more from them. We said we want to see them do a little bit more than what they've been able to in their last 3 series. This is kind of what we expected. And again, on paper, these players are just so good individually that it can work together if they can bring it all and, you know, work it out in terms of where the pieces go.
Ultra Prime trying to trade the Rift Tower for the Dragon at the moment. The big issue that I'm seeing though is if you look at that top lane, right? Nice wave that could have crashed in. Wasn't sure if Clid wanted to go up there and instantly put that money in towards xiaolaohu. I feel like at this stage, Gori's in a good spot. Lwx and Hung have full control of top lane. For Clid, using that Rift Tower top and confirming xiaolaohu's control of that side lane is probably your best bet right now.
I'll wait and see where they want to drop Shelly. Ultra Prime do trade themselves a dragon, so they got that going for them, but a two-man knocked up as Hong just trying to make this one work for him again. xiaoC has to flash away, and you can see Lwx moving forward. They've got Hacker and Cryin, though, trying to turn this one around a little bit. They're going to have a 4v2 in this bot side. Lwx uses the heal. He has no flash to get away. They're trying to keep themselves alive, but FPX went a little bit too close to the sun, and they will be burned. 2 kills for Ultra Prime. Good response for them from the mid laner and jungler.
Yeah, FPX though have moved in towards the mid, as he said, making sure that they can get this tower. And now Cryin does manage to get some action on the map, but might actually lose out on his mid lane turret as a result.
There's always an answer. There is always a reaction to when you make a play like that, and FPX not to be undone. It is still a good move here from Ultra Prime to not lose out on the bot side. You can see how low the health bars went, but a double push on the Rift Herald means this mid lane is becoming very tenuous for Cryin. And in fairness, he doesn't want to be here anyway, so it gives him more of an excuse to leave.
Especially when you're looking now at the opportunity for FPX to like open up into a 1-3-1 if they want to. Like both the dragons and the Rift Heralds are off the map, so you can just put the Zeri mid. But this engage from Hung was really well played, right? Hops over the wall with the Hex Flash. And it's just unfortunate that they just can't quite kill xiaoC. You can see the Zaps just trying to get that damage onto xiaoC. He goes insanely low, but you've already got the cavalry arriving in Cryin and Hacker. Healed burnt by the Zeri, trying to buy space there, but it's just not enough, and Lwx and Hong end up falling for their trouble.
It's a nice response there, but of course, like we mentioned, you did get the Rift Herald from FPX. They still go into about a 2,500 gold lead, and Zeri picking up some free farm in the bot side. Does keep her nice and topped up. We'll have the Triforce pretty much in the next back, as we can now see maybe Hong and xiaoC going for a little bit of engage. There's a level difference right now, and already you can see using the Galio to full effect. They know he has nowhere to go, and he does not have Aftershock. He is a squishy boy. FPX answering right back in this bot side.
And again now, Lwx gets to be the benefactor, right? Plates taken on the bot side. 3 kills now for Gori, and because all this is going on, xiaolaohu and ZS, I thought we'd see some action towards this top lane to try and help out in the matchup, but nobody cares. It's like, look, you do your thing. We're just going to win elsewhere on the map for FPX.
Well, Ultra Prime seeing if they can maybe make a later move towards that top side, but nothing really doing there. Hacker not finding any camps either, so not really making the most out of what he could possibly make there. But 4v2 in this mid lane could be an opportunity here. They don't have great vision at all. In fact, they have no vision whatsoever. And now Gori going to have to use that taunt to try and keep himself alive. Gets hooked up, gets knocked up, and goes straight into stasis. Now, they've got the Jax who gets punted out straight away. It's a 5v3. They will be able to take out the Alistar in the end, so it ends up being a 2-for-none trade, but you lost that bot lane turret, and all the plates and gold go over to Lwx.
And with 2 people dead, maybe Ultra Prime can make this dive happen on the top side. xiaolaohu, you're in trouble.
You're in a lot of trouble. He gets flashed on, gets counter-strike down. They should be able to keep him in place with the Ruin Prison. Uses the Hextech ultimatum to buy some time. But there is the... Ooh, okay, I thought it was going to be a disaster there for a second. But they get out clean, so good response from Ultra Prime.
Yeah, sometimes, you know, your own bomb that you plant is the worst. I learned that in Bomberman years ago, and Cryin nearly found the same problem there. But Ultra Prime, 3 quick kills, and honestly, brilliantly played, right? Like, you know that tower's gone down on the bottom side. There's not much you can do, so make the cross map happen. And Cryin moves up with ZS. You've got the Zhao moving up here as well, and Hacker, and Flash 4 by ZS just catches xiaolaohu before he can try and make the great escape.
I love this from Cryin as well. He holds onto the Ruin Prison basically until Hacker can get there, just to be sure. And oh, skating again, a little scary, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it was totally planned. He's totally knew what he was doing. Not an issue for our boy Cryin in the mid lane.
Now we get him back onto the map, though, right? And at least you're getting the solo laners for Ultra Prime into an okay spot, right? 2 kills now going back the way of Cryin means that he's going to have an easier time in the side lane against Galio. Jax getting some attention as well means that he should be in an okay spot, but as you can see, he hasn't been able to complete his first item, unlike the Camille. because Divine Thunder picked up for xiaolaohu, but he doesn't match. So at least on Ultra Prime side, you're still waiting a little bit longer, but writing the side lanes is a good answer for what FPX are trying to do.
Yeah, and you look across the board, apart from top lane, where there's a 400 gold lead there for ZS, it's basically gold leads across the board for every single lane. You've got about 500 in jungle, you've got about maybe even 500 again in mid lane, actually a little bit more, about 800. And FPX know this. They're going to walk around. This is the death ball composition that we talked about. They are very happy to walk around as a 5-man unit. Super Mega Death Rocket comes out, but the dragon had already been taken. You're well too late on that one, Elk. And now, Ultra Prime, you got to figure something out. It looks like they are opting to try and get that side lane pressure going with the Jax and the Ryze, but like we mentioned before, Elk doesn't really have a lot of peel options for him. If he gets jumped on, he's probably just dead. And xiaoC, you're by yourself, buddy. You need to leave.
Is he?
Yeah, he's definitely in a lot of trouble. Flashes away, does get the hook onto the wall, but losing your flash because you want to take a pink ward, I don't think that's very worth.
Yeah, not exactly the best of ideas. Especially when, again, you don't really have your support there, right? Hacker was on the bottom side of the map. ZS didn't really have push in top side, but we are starting to see both teams now trying to opt in towards this 1-3-1. Gori up on this top side. xiaolaohu, I was going to say more than likely going down towards this bot lane, but may not actually be the case. It looks like our FPX at least want to commit multiple people over towards this Rift Herald, and xiaolaohu and Gori being without teleport makes it a little bit different.
Well, 15.5 minutes onto the clock. It's still only a 2,000 gold lead, but Rift Herald has been started now by FPX. They have priority up in this top side. You can see that Ultra Prime are thinking about maybe contesting it, but they'll have to make that decision pretty quickly if they want to try and make it stick. They will spot out Hong as they move forward now. Shelly's still going in. Hong gets a 3-man knock-up and tries to keep himself alive. xiaoC seeing if he can do something to help the fighting. Elk's doing very well to keep himself safe. They haven't got the damage down, so no one goes down, but at the end of it all, it is still the Rift Herald going over to FPX.
Yeah, and Ultra Prime trying to see if they can move into mid lane and get some damage on this mid lane turret, but FPX are going to be able to show up, so nice job from Hong to set that up. Though, Ultra Prime's still sticking around. I have to say, though, like, it feels like when you get towards team fights, hang on. Where's FPX? Are they just gonna lose that? What?
Lads! Where did you go? The split push Galio is too strong.
I was just like, oh yeah, you know, they're gonna move into mid, bully Ultra Prime off, they're not gonna be able to do very much, we'll all be fine, but I mean, look, trading mid for top, at least this is the last outer tower now for FPX, whereas when you look across at Ultra Prime, because they've only got the mid tower down, it's not gonna be as easy for them to try and like coordinate through mid lane. With the all outer turrets down for Ultra Prime, FPX can push in these lanes pretty effectively and deny Ultra Prime access to their own jungle. Whereas Ultra Prime, with that last tower going down, are going to really struggle to keep control over their jungle. And that's exactly what FPX want, right? They're really good at finding picks with like xiaolaohu being able to set up with the ultimate, having Gori follow up, and even when you look at Hong just being able to wander around and kind of play this pick-orientated style with the Alistar as well, that can be great, but it kind of feeds into their team fight as well, right? Like a lot of these tools that we're talking about to find picks can also be the ones that isolate targets in team fights to just pick them off while the fight kicks off. So for Elk and Cryin, you need to be so safe in these fights, because if xiaolaohu blocks you up, Hong gets on top of you, Gori's going to be quick to follow.
In fairness to Ultra Prime, they have stabilized a little bit. It's just still the 2,000 gold lead here. Of course, a lot of those outer towers contributing to that. A lot of the early plates as well, as we can see now. Finally, that top lane tier 1 goes down to ZS. Now, with the pressure you have in mid lane, you should be able to drop the Rift Herald either in bot or in mid and get one of these tier 2s. And looks like it's going to be the bot side is where they decide to focus. And this might be a little bit of an overextension here from Clay. He gets caught underneath the tower and has to flash away. That was unfortunate! He's dead! Super Mega Death Rocket from downtown, and now you can see Ultra Prime, they want to go, but Lwx is on the Zeri, so he backs himself up. And while this is happening, you can still see on the minimap and the picture-in-picture, Jax is split pushing.
The individual mistake from Clade costing FPX so much here. He's going to get the top lane turret. Yes, Gori will show up. Actually, TP invested. Maybe ZS won't get out.
I mean, he probably won't get out, but he should get this turret. Yep, he picks that one up. He's going to try and maybe trade back a little bit of the health bar, but he is dead to Ryze. But at the end of it all, you're trading a turret, a tier 2 turret for a tier 2 and a kill. I still think that's kind of worth it.
Yeah, and especially with the TPs invested as well for xiaolaohu, like that's actually a pretty sizable tool down for trying to combat what Ultra Prime want to do. So Ultra Prime now, Dragon in 35 seconds. Resets have only just started to come through. They're going to be a little bit late to the party, but especially with ZS down, you're going to need to potentially bring ZS in with a TP if you want to fully contest this. They may just give us based on where they're moving around.
Yeah, you can see FPX already pushing in towards that mid lane. We have a look at the replay here, and this is just Khalid getting a little bit too excited, and then Cryin just says, cool, I'll just root you underneath the turret.
Yeah, I mean, the wave isn't even in position, so I don't know what Khalid was thinking there. Like, the wave gets caught by the opposite one. The Rift Herald hasn't charged in, and I mean, that costs FPX so much. An individual error there just really hurting FPX in that play.
Yeah, and the gold lead now down to about just underneath 1,000, so you're still feeling like Ultra Prime have an opportunity in this game, and this is exactly what you mentioned for FPX. We talked about how they struggle with these mid to late game decision making, and we're already into the mid game, and we're seeing it just sort of fall apart for them. They had such a great start.
I don't necessarily mind the decision making on the play. It's the individual error that kind of caused a lot of that. When I put the thing is though, like that's kind of a symptom of the bigger issue, right? Is like FPX not looking as coordinated as they should. ZS though hovering here onto xiaolaohu.
I mean, Hacker is here, but it's the 3v2. They're going to fully commit here now with the ultimates of Galio and the Camille. Get the two-man knock-up and try and take him down. There it is, completely taken away from the side of Ultra Prime. But now they're going to try and maybe turn this one back around, but with the Zhonyas being able to buy time, FPX Clint gets himself out with the Heartbreaker and keeps himself up and available. Hong kind of joining in now, just a little bit too late, I should say, as Lwx flashes away, did not get himself over the wall properly. And that means that FPX do get a kill, but they lose a couple of summoners on the backside.
Yeah, it's the quick pick and FPX will back away. The summoners being gone on the Zeri are actually pretty big if any sort of fight starts to look towards Baron, because a lot of the close quarter combat kind of relies on her being quite mobile. And yes, obviously her kit is designed for that, but having flashes and heals just to help you out of a pinch are going to be pretty big. So we'll have to see if Ultra Prime can try and punish that. But with 3 minutes until the Dragon, it's going to be a while before we really look at that. It feels like trying to fight over vision control for Baron is where we're going to see both these teams kind of scrap over.
Vision control over Baron, like you mentioned as well. No real soul available for at least 8.5 minutes for FPX. If they lose the next one, it's again even longer than that. So Ultra Prime happy to just try and keep this one going up. And have a look at the items as well. Look at the amount of stopwatches you now have available to you on the side of Ultra Prime. One on Ryze, you got one on the Nautilus, and of course the Jinx. And on the other end, you just have the one Zhonya. So the ability to slow down these fights, to get yourself reset, is still in favor of Ultra Prime for the moment. But we'll see how, again, they're able to execute on that when the fight actually happens.
There is so much shred damage on FPX though. Like Lwx is quite sizable at this stage. Working towards that Runaan's Hurricane, which will be finishing off fairly soon. As FPX, oh, it's the classic, the FPX Baron play. I didn't think it would happen so soon. Let's go.
They're thinking about it. They're probably going to back away now once Ultra Prime sniffs something now. Yeah, they thought about it. This is a classic move of FPX. Thankfully, though, if you're an FPX fan, they do not fully commit to the meme.
Yeah, the real Valentine's all along was FPX and Baron. We should have put that in the opening segment because, my God, it's just insane. So a lot of people are like, okay, well, they only just started that up. They didn't really cost anything, right? But it actually does. So ZS now has got this push on the bottom side of the map, so xiaolaohu can no longer threaten that turret, and you're actually buying a ton of space in these side lanes. Look at where that top lane was pushed into. Gori now has to go and get that pushed in. So now you lose vision control of River. As you can see, Ultra Prime are clearing that all out. They can now dip in towards FPX's side to get their own vision control. And that like, one play actually gives a ton of breathing room to Ultra Prime. And this is why we talk about the mid game from FPX being a struggle. Because they end up trying to consistently go for these plays, and it really is just not working out.
Again, it's the opportunity cost. It's the what did you lose in terms of the opportunities that you gave over, and that means that you don't have control around the Baron. You don't have the push in the side lanes, and with the Ryze and the Jax pushing this thing consistently, you are going to struggle to maintain control of this without your side lanes just crashing over and over.
And already you can see, like, top lane crashing in, ZS has crashed this into the bot side, and now we're kind of looking at the Dragon coming up, right? Because we've actually got a lot of time where nothing really happened from FPX. And a minute on towards that, you've got lanes in good position for Ultra Prime. They have decent vision control of Baron, so it's not like FPX can just suddenly push in. They're going to be able to get mid out of pushed out as well. So Ultra Prime are in a good spot now to contest this, especially when you look at the items, right? Kraken Slayer, Ruin's Hurricane, Last Whisper for Elk. He's going to be churning out a ton of damage. Ryze having 3 items completed. The Blade of the Rune King for ZS as well. Like, as long as Elk isn't the one getting caught by the initial engage from FPX, Ultra Prime can look to take this fight.
Absolutely. You got 3 items now onto Cryin. He has got himself so set up for the next few fights, and Elk not too far behind him either. You're now looking at pretty much a relatively equal goldie. It's about 500-600 gold in favor of FPX, so not really a lot to be kind of writing home about as such. But now we see now with Ultra Prime, they're going to be contesting this dragon, which will be spawning in about 15 seconds. The positive of the Zeri with the Titanic Hydra is that you can just keep throwing in your Qs, recognizing if you hit somebody, you'll see the animation. So it does give you a little bit of extra safety when face checking, but we'll see what either of these sides want to go for. You have flashes on pretty much everyone except for Hacker, and everyone else is trying to be a little bit more annoying. Now it's FPX this time around in the Dragon Pit.
Yeah, and at least Ultra Prime are staying wide, right? Not giving Zeri the damage, but that's what you got to watch out for. As you group up like this, Zeri's damage can ruin you with that Titanic Hydra completely.
Oh, they go in. Hacker not able to move, though, and has to go golden straight away. But look at this fight. The counter-strike over the top side. It's the Camille for Zhao trade. Look at Cryin. He's just churning out this damage. He's jumping straight onto Lwx. Can he get the damage down? No, Lwx get himself over the wall. The perfect place for him to be. They do not take the Realm Orb as the Jinx does die, and they will turn back for the 3v2 they feel they can take. Gori gets out with absolutely nothing and is just recalling in front of everybody. Cryin eventually to take the kill onto Clid. It is a dragon for FPX, but they are very much torn and battered as they come out of that fight, very much out on the bottom side.
The 2 carries at Ultra Prime were in perfect spots. Neither of them targeted in that initial engagement, and it means they can actually follow up. Now Cryin won't spot that the Galio is just DP'd away, but a nice job here from Ultra Prime, and now they don't get the dragon that goes for FPX, but they're going to be feeling much more confident about a fight if it pops up at this Baron Pit.
Have a look at the replay here, because like you said, the carries of Ultra Prime just untouched, and it's a bit separated from FPX at the start.
Yeah, they try to go onto Hacker with the idea being, hey, look, the jungler's trying to steal away the objective, but they don't really care, right? Because Elk does get a good amount of damage off before Gori's able to really set him up. But Cryin is just doing so much in this fight. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised no one decided to take the Realm Warp there just to finish off the 2 low health members, but obviously fairly worried about Clid, and all those stopwatches that you highlighted, Elshin coming in so clutch in that fight as well, with how many people were able to just go golden and keep these people off their backs.
They're going to go for this. They now have full vision, though, from the side of FPX. There is a TP in the Camille who's trying to reset and come straight back into this. This Baron is going down very, very quickly. They have to make a call. They're going to put the TP in. They're going to see if Hong can get into it. No, there's going to be the Baron secured by Ultra Prime, and now the fight can really ensue. FPX trying to make this one work as they do take down the jungler. Hextech ultimatum to lock down everybody down, and xiaolaohu trades his life to keep this fight going. Look at the Zeri just putting at the damage. Lilk has to be the one to make this one work for his team. As Clid gets himself the reset onto the Nautilus, but it's not enough. Lwx in the pit, but it is still a 2-for-2 trade, and at the end of it all, the Realm Warp keeps those 3 Baron buffs alive. Ultra Prime take it away with Daylight Robbery.
Ultra Prime were so smart on that, knowing we have Blade of the Rune King, Jax, Kraken Slayer, Jinx, and this Ryze who can churn out damage. They can burst down the Baron so fast, and Ultra Prime steal it away, and they take the fight after as well. It was so well orchestrated.
Both AD carries just chunking out damage, but you can see the power of a hyper carry Jinx when it's able to find those opportunities, when able to find time, you just cannot walk forward.
And the fact that the Galio ult wasn't available set this up beautifully, right? Actually really good engage from xiaolaohu onto Elk, but there's no follow-up. Gori doesn't have his ults available right now, so Elk has to go golden only to deal with the initial engage coming through from Gori. And at that stage, with Flash still available because it wasn't burnt the last fight, Elk is still able to follow up and deal the damage that is necessary. Now you're looking at 4 items on towards Cryin, who hasn't even gone for, you know, the traditional build that we've started to see with the Fimbulwinter for this Ryze. He's going straight up damage. The Ryze Crystal Scepter as well coming in, which also got a buff coming in onto 12.2. This Ryze is churning out damage.
Really, really, really set up for success right now, and This is where the game gets a little bit awkward here for FPX. You have a 1-3-1 composition, or at least a side lane split pushing composition from Ultra Prime with a Baron buff. This is the perfect buff to just accentuate those strengths you have with the Jax, with the Ryze, and just keep yourself safe. And unfortunately, with the composition you build, you don't exactly have the greatest of wave clear to deal with these waves of Baroned up minions.
Yeah, and especially for Ultra Prime, right? Like, when they've been winning these fights pretty handily, just staying grouped as this kind of 1-4 is working out pretty well. The only problem is ZS did have to reset on the bottom side, so they're not actually getting great use out of the Baron. Like, they didn't actually get any turrets, and with everyone resetting, there's no more waves for them to try and use this Baron buff on.
No more waves. It is 10-10 in kills. Ultra Prime with about 1,000 gold lead, maybe a little bit less than that. It is 3 dragons to 1 in favor of FPX, but I imagine in 50 seconds that should be 3 dragons to 2, as Ultra Prime should, quote unquote, have themselves the opportunity to be able to keep that area of the map to themselves.
40 seconds until the dragon, though. And this is where we're looking at what was used in the last fight. No flash for Elk. Stopwatch burned as well. There's no more safety for him, but they find the pick.
They find Hong, and he's just getting burnt down. You don't have any more consistent engage, but it does not matter. FPX going to try and make it work anyway. It's going to be a 5-man knockup with the grand entrance, and there's just nothing you can do. FPX lost their support, but they did not care. ZS trying to turn this one around with Cryin, but it is just not enough. It's a 5-for-1 trade. FPX saw an opportunity, and they took it.
And that was the exact fight that I was just about to highlight. You don't have that safety for Elk anymore. The combo of xiaolaohu and Gori tear apart Elk. Cryin gets caught in the mix as well, because everyone from Ultra Prime dives onto Elk to try and help save him, but that only sets up FPX for the win. And with that, they'll take game number 1.
On the blink of an eye, FPX going from on the back foot to running it straight into the finish line. They will take game 1 over Ultra Prime, and very much feeling like Ultra Prime needed to just kind of calm it down a little bit. They'll be a bit sore after that loss.
It's so hard for Ultra Prime to deal with this composition when the safety tools are down on their side, right? Like xiaolaohu consistently finding that he was able to just dive straight through onto the back line, even giving his life on occasion if necessary, but it was all about trying to lock up Elk and give that engage towards Gori, and especially if everyone's like grouped up into those big Galio ultimates, it's very, very easy then for Lwx to tear through people on that Zeri. They're all lined up. You've got Runan's Titanic and the damage coming through off the passive from the ultimate. You just shred people.
Yeah, it really was a perfect storm right at the end there from the side of FPX. I thought when they lost the Alistar, they would lose that very safe engage you get with the Alistar going in. But xiaolaohu was not to be outdone, said, it's okay, I can make this work and just follow my lead. And it's exactly what they were able to do. Like you mentioned, so hard, so... I suppose the word I'm looking for is just kind of tough to deal with that loss for the side of Ultra Prime, because you got it back. Yes, you had a pretty difficult early game, but you brought it back. You were able to get the right items onto the right people, but you just couldn't make it stick.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate that in this type of situation, you need some sort of definitive peel tool for the Jinx, and this is where you can see like the problems with banning away things like the Thresh start to come into play, right? Because if you've got a flay for the Camille, it becomes a lot more difficult for her to try and get in onto those fights. But unfortunately, the Nautilus just wasn't doing quick enough to peel for the Jinx. xiaolaohu, I have to say, like, he was the main source, well, like the main person I was keeping my eye on in these fights, because it was incredible how often he was just getting access onto this Jinx, especially like the Baron fight didn't really come together because you didn't have Gori with the ultimate up, but you can see there at that dragon fight, they get onto Elk, they lock up everyone and just obliterate them. Look at that goal graph.
Yeah, it is a very stereotypical goal graph of the LPL, where one team sort of loses it and then all of a sudden it looks like it's a bad situation, but they bring it all the way back in. So good win for FPX. Not a clean win by any stretch of the imagination, but we are starting to see them be able to shore up some of those late game decision makings and those, as you say, those symptoms of a not so coordinated team, because that felt to me like there was a definitive call and they all followed it, and that's why it worked out for them.
I definitely on team fighting, yes. I still think when we look at the way that they moved around the map, not so hot, right? Like there was the individual mistake coming through from Clid where he kind of got caught out, but you look at that Baron call as well. We had to highlight that again. They're just kind of like throwing things at the Baron and hoping that they stick. So I think for FPX, yes, they found those team fights, but you do still have to kind of look and wonder, go, hey, look, if they get these advantages, do they really know how to play through that?
Yeah, I think that's the big thing we'll be looking towards and in the next game. And of course, for Ultra Prime, can they bring it back? Can they bring us to a game 3? That's going to be the question we're going to have. But we're going to think about that